Hey, what's up? It's Sifu Kuttel, and in this video, we're going to be working with the military Da Dao by Chen, and we're going to be doing a technique from the manual Practical Techniques for Da Dao from 1933. Now, a quick aside, you need to know about this manual because it is written in the perspective of making practicality the #1 goal. This was written in World War II, and this was written directly so that people could learn how to use the sword against bayonet attacks. So at this point, you're not worried about people shooting guns, but you're worried about the bayonet and stabbing techniques similar to a spear. So it's a really unique time because this is within a timeline that we have manuals for this, and there are some footage of forms, but this is a really unique piece from the manual because in the beginning of the manual, there's a lot of talk about how this routine is all about being practical. The name of it is Practical Techniques. It's supposed to be meant to be used directly without any extra movements. And it even talks down about Kung Fu forms with flowery extra techniques just for demonstration. And I find that to be really contradictory with this particular technique, as it uses a very odd way of the stealing step. Now, of course, this is my interpretation of it, but I have seen footage of people performing this form in old newsreels and performing a technique similar to this. And being from my background in Choi Li Fut, which is a Qing Dynasty martial art, there are some times where you get into some fancy footwork like this, and I'll talk about why I think that's important, but I'm just going to show you guys how to do this at the same time as having a little bit of a skeptic eye as why this was in a manual about only practical techniques. So let's get to it. So before we use the sword, let's just focus on the footwork. The first thing we're going to do is start with a cat stance with our left foot forward. Okay, so a little bit of weight on that foot, but most of our weight on the right foot. Now from here, I'm going to twist the foot, pointing my toes to the side. Then I'm going to step like a horse stance. Toes are pointing the same direction. And then I'm going to touch my toes behind. Okay, so this is going to be turning my torso to this side, step, and then lightly touch behind. Now, when you do this, the first step is going to be low, but after that, we're going to hop and then touch our back toe. Okay, so this is actually turning into a hopping motion. So if we do it very martial arts style, we have twist, hop, and then step behind. Okay, my hip is pointing in this direction, my shoulders are pointing in this direction as well, and my head is pointing in this direction. Now let's use the sword. So this is some fancy footwork, and now we're going to do some fancy sword work to match. From this position, if I'm facing this way now, I'm going to take the blade and scoop down. Think of using the spine of the sword to block and deflect. Hop, bringing it over, and then down with a cut at the end. Okay, so again, from here, I'm going to turn, so use the spine of the sword, deflect, hop, step, and cut. Now, of course, that's just the stepping motion. Once we actually start putting it into motion with the hop itself, it's going to be a quick circle. It just continues around into the actual cut itself. Again, 1, 2, okay? Now, nice and light, you should be able to lift up this back foot. You have all that weight on this foot, but we're not leaning away, okay? One more time from here. 1, 2. Now, this is a really weird position. When you try this on your own, you'll feel that there's not really a lot of power to cut down as if we had our right foot forward, okay? And this is one of those things where even if my opponent was deflecting or attacking towards me and I deflect, I would just cut and follow up rather than doing this extra hop and steal behind. Now there's actually more to this technique, and this is where it gets to more of the practical side, but I still find this to be a little bit of an impractical step. From here, my opponent's going to be attacking over the top. I step in and receive and push that away and then attack. So once I'm in this position, I move forward, receive, and kind of push offline, and then attack. And this is as well a little strange, and you'll feel this from this foot being behind to out and forward. It's a really unusual way of moving, and it makes it very impractical as a chained or linked technique. Because again, if it's in this position, if I do a more practical version from the deflection and then I just step forward with my lead leg, I have a good solid attack here. And then to get that same idea, I can just deflect on the spot, sidestep, and attack. Or if I really want to move in and keep my hip and shoulder forward, I can cross step in front and then attack. This back step and then out is quite awkward, especially when you're working with the blade to go in an opposite direction. So again, putting the whole thing together from this position, deflect, hop, and then 1, 2. It's a really unusual way. It's got some really unusual footwork. Okay, again, from here, deflect, hop, here, 1, 2. Okay, so there you have it. Now, again, there is a practical sense to this when we get past that footwork, but I do find the initial hop and stealing step, as well as stepping in for the next technique, to be quite unusual. It's quite fancy, and it focuses on coordination and things like that. And coming from a forms background and a martial arts background where it's very forms heavy, the way that I see techniques like this in forms is to develop your coordination and athleticism and your moving balance. These are odd positions, and if you're able to move with agility, if you're able to move with good balance and actual resolve and focus, then you're going to have, that'll kind of roll off into your actual martial combat. So I do see value in these techniques. But again, this goes back to the thing I said in the very beginning, where I think this is really contradictory to the entire theme of this manual as being, you know, you can learn the move and use the move, because this is not an easy one just to jump into. Okay, this takes practice, and the amount of times that you're actually going to be using something like this, at least that jumping and stealing stance footwork, is very, very low percentage. It's very slim that you're ever going to see that or use it on the battlefield. A lot of the footwork is probably going to be more grounded compared to that. But again, I just wanted to point this one out because I think it's a really unique piece of that manual and a piece of history. So now hopefully you know how to do it better, and see how that improves your footwork for your other martial arts training. And if you ever are able to employ this, make sure to get video and tag me in it. I would love to see it. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next.